if I can do it, and I learned with 2 very small children in the home, and I was raising them and homeschooling them, and I'm still doing it, then you can too.
Hey y'all, welcome to Stivers Homestead. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jim.
And today we're going to go through a big rundown of a lot of different herbs.
We are. It's going to be fun, it's going to be informational, but overall, I need everyone to do their own research because I am not a doctor. Just want to say that up front.
Not a doctor, however, learned by experience.
Yes. So as a kid, we used mostly herbs and herbal treatments to treat most of the problems that we had. We never had anything that was crazy that needed, you know, attention from a serious doctor or anything like that. But that was just kind of how we used to treat our family. That's what we did. We took herbs in capsule form, we drank teas, we foraged for a lot. We did a lot of ginseng and just all the things that were around our little homestead. So growing older, that interest grew for me. I guess, you know, some people would leave it behind. Some people would deep dive into it. I chose to deep dive into it. And I had a serious interest in herbs and being able to continue what I learned in my childhood on into adulthood and be able to use it for my own family. So over the past 7 years, I've read about every book that there is to read out there. Not really, but it's been a lot. I've just done a lot of research on my downtime. It's something that I'm really interested in, so it's never felt like work or school to me. It's just something that I truly love and have a passion for. So in 7 years, I've learned a lot. I've been able to make our own tinctures, our own salves, our own oils, and a lot of that you guys get to see on the Etsy, but you don't see kind of the back end of that, of what else we use or what else that we keep on hand for problems that may arise. So that's kind of what we're going to go over in this video. It's a bulk herb haul. Now we do grow a lot of our own herbs, but we can't do everything, right? We're only on 12 acres. So we do purchase quite a bit just to have in our own back pocket. That we can make all those things out of, and then also to experiment with, to get to love and know, and then share with you all in the future. So I guess we'll get started.
Okay, so on estimate, how many different types of herbs do you think is sitting right here? About 30?
Probably.
About 30 different ones. So like she had said, we're not going to deep dive into every single herb that's here. She's going to tell you what it is, kind of show it to you, but when it comes to the specifics, just Google that name.
And,
or
I mean, I wouldn't Google.
Yeah, sorry.
I would use an herbal encyclopedia.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Go to your book.
Google is great, but Google is not the end-all be-all for herbs.
Right, right. That's very true. Very good point. But what else is getting at, we're not going to deep dive into every single one, so let's get to it. Okay, so as you can see, there is a lot of them. So starting down at the end, babe, what do you got?
Well, first I want to say the main 3 things that we treat in our family are respiratory. That's mostly what everyone deals with on the daily, urinary, and antibiotic properties. So that's what most of these herbs are for. Not all of them. There are some other things, and then there's herbs. Herbs can work by themselves or they can work together, and when you mix them with other things, they can treat other things, but we're not going to get into all that. So the first one we got is burdock root, and these are all organic. These are from Bulk Apothecary, and I got 4 ounces and 4 ounces, so 8 total. This one is very expensive. It's just kind of what it is. None of them are cheap, but there's more that are more expensive than others because sourcing them can be more difficult.
I will add on her expensive piece, herbs are getting very popular, which is a good thing.
Yes.
Like, that is a fantastic thing.
People are taking back control.
Yes, exactly. But prices go up when demand goes up. So when you go, you got these from Bulk Apothecary. So you got to play around, and that's the good thing on herbs being more universal. So it's not like this one herb does respiratory. Multiple do.
Yes.
So that's when the books come into play, because if that one's really expensive, because that's what everybody knows, elderberry, then you can go look for a different one that maybe the groups haven't gotten caught on to just yet and might have it a little bit cheaper. All right, right back to it.
This next one is organic nettle leaf. I've got 16 ounces of that. These are 4 ounces each. The next one is peppermint leaves. Each bag is 1 pound, so I've got 2 pounds total. Chase tree berries that are organic. I've got 1 bag of those, and it is 1 pound. The next is turmeric root. You can never have enough turmeric in your life. It's sliced, and those are organic too. We've got valerian root as well, and a dandelion root. Great things to have for everyone. These next bags are huge. They are 1 pound each of lemongrass, organic lemongrass. We've got hawthorn leaf and flower. That is also 1 pound. We've got organic corn silk. These are also 1 pound. We've got lavender flowers, 1 pound of those. I have a bunch of lavender on hand, but I just wanted to get some more just to stock up on. Calendula, you know I love calendula. I have a bunch, and we do grow our own, but you can never have enough, so I just got another pound of that. I've got a pound of rose hips, 1 pound of chamomile flowers. We also grow our own and have a bunch, but again, never have enough. 1 pound of sage leaf, 1 pound of astragalus root, some anise seed, chickweed. I think these are both, yeah, those are both chickweed, and this one's chickweed as well. We've got 3 pounds of dried elderberries here, organic. We are growing our own elderberries, but they are not established yet, so we're still having to purchase those. We've got 16 ounces of rosemary leaves, a pound of raspberry leaf, and a pound of marshmallow root. So how do you decipher whether you want a root or powder or leaves or berries? It totally just depends on what you're trying to make. So I have a certain purpose for all of these. I didn't just buy them because I wanted them. I know what I'm going to do with them. So if you have something in mind, or if you have like those 3 areas that you're focused on for your family or yourself, you find out what you want to do with it, you find out how to do it, and then that's how you determine whether you need root, powder, or leaf. It just depends for each circumstance. I love to have roots because they're more expensive, but it's the true source of it. It's where you're going to get the most nutrition from. But they're harder to source, obviously, because you're having to pull up roots. And we don't do a lot of growing of our own root stuff. 1, because we have moved a lot.
Right.
And 2, just because, you know, like we have echinacea, but I don't want to dig into the roots. Now, one day we might have enough room for all of that, and it would be really cool. But it's just specifically figuring out what you need and what you're wanting to do, and then you can decide which source that you want it in.
Yeah. So I know one thing for me is I have learned so much from her in this process of her just getting all these different herbs and making different things and stuff. It's really been amazing to see, and that's why I'm glad that she's able to share that with you all as well, because I know it's really starting to draw some interest. I think the 3 primary areas that we kind of stick around but are not limited to, it's just the primary 3 are teas, tinctures, and salves. Wouldn't you agree? So that's kind of the purpose of a lot of this stuff. You know, I think sometimes we think that we need a tincture or a salve for those healing purposes, but just making a delicious tea itself can be the medicinal pieces that you need. So some of the stuff that you're seeing like that, you might think, I thought you just drank that in tea. Well, you do, but it has reasoning behind it and purpose for that specific tea. But I don't know, it's just been really cool to learn so much because I had no idea about any of this stuff, so kudos to her. So you all know a lot of our favorites, a lot of the ones that we use very often: elderberry, chamomile, calendula, comfrey, lavender. You know, that's a new tincture that's hit the Etsy store. But I asked her, I was like, out of all of this, like, can you pick 3 newish ones? Like, I know she knows, but we haven't talked about on the channel, that may be cool to bring in. So I think she's narrowed her down to 3 at the moment. Yep,
so 2 are pretty common, and 2 are things that you could grow right in your backyard. Actually all 3, but 2 are very common things that most gardens have. Rosemary leaves are awesome. If you have not looked into the properties of rosemary, do and grow it, because it's harder to get started, but if you can get it started and maintain it, it's a great herb to have in your garden, not just for cooking, for medicinal as well. The next is raspberry leaf. That is something that we've never grown, but if we come to love it, we might. We'll see. I don't know. But if you have not looked into the properties of that as well, do, because it is very important to have on hand. And the last one is pretty common. I think here within the past 2 years, everybody's kind of gotten on the turmeric train, right? So this is turmeric root. We do powder and root. I always keep both on hand. We do a lot with the powder. It's got a lot of amazing properties, inflammatory, antibiotic. It's just, you can do so many things with turmeric, not just eat with it. You can make so many things from it. And turmeric root can be grown. I actually know someone that grows turmeric root and for themselves, and it's kind of going commercially. It can be done. You just have to have the space for it. But you can even grind that root into powder, and then you can have it both ways if you want to, but it's really, really good for you.
Yeah, and I would say one thing that she's done with powder, instead of just putting it in food, we juice sometimes,
Yes.
and she would put the turmeric powder right into there, and that helps because turmeric's a pretty potent flavor, but if you mix it in with all that kind of juicing, it's a way that she's gotten it into my digestive system in a pretty easy fashion.
So one more thing that we have not mentioned, I know we've mentioned tinctures, salves, oils, teas. All of those things are so wonderful, and honestly, tinctures is one of the biggest ways we're going to go with all of this. We're kind of going to build our own apothecary. I mean, we already have a small one, you know, that we keep in our bathroom, but it's going to be a cool thing to get into. Another one that we have not mentioned is capsules. You can buy capsules online. Pretty sure you can get them on Amazon, and you can capsulate any herb that you want to, or any herb concoction, and you can even get them like vegan capsules, ones that are healthier for you, that you're able to digest and that don't just sit in your gut. But that's a really cool thing if you haven't looked into, and if it's something that you're interested in, it's a really cool way to be able to ingest all this stuff if you're not so good with like tinctures and, you know, having to swallow that kind of stuff.
Right. So one thing that we preach on this channel is being sustainable, and our definition of sustainable is not going out and like bulk buying and just holding it in and not growing any of that stuff. This kind of contradicts that a little bit, right? But in our opinion, you can get 1 pound of a dried herb and you can make so much medicine from that would last you years upon years, you know, kind of thing. So that's why we think about it this way, that it still is sustainable, because we're taking that item and then making mass amounts of something from it. So that's one thing to think about. Keep trying to grow as much as you can. You know, that's why we did the 6 herb boxes in our garden, because she's gotta have her top 6. The stuff
And that's
that we
not
use.
the only place we have herbs.
Right.
Like we've mentioned before, they're kind of everywhere, all over the homestead.
Yeah, and you know, it varies too, because there is some stuff that are annuals. I mean, obviously they will reseed for the most part and come back and spread. But you need a spot for that. Then you have the ones that are coming back like elderberry bushes, right? So those are long-term growers that you need to put in a more permanent spot. Elderberries love water, so you know they need to be close to somewhere that are constantly moisturized. And then there's just all kinds of different things. So do this. I would suggest finding some favorites, get some as you can afford them, play around with them, see what are your favorites, and then how can you incorporate that into your own garden, kind of thing.
So how do you learn all this stuff? Like, how do you know which herbs are good for you and your illnesses or whatever you may have, or which teas that you need? What does your body need, and how do you figure all that out? And then how do you figure it out for your family? Well, don't go to Google. You know, Google can be a friend, but books. Read all the books you can. People ask me all the time on our channel, what are your top herb books? And anything, honestly, that Rosemary Gladstar puts out is a wonderful, wonderful source for herbs. And then my favorite for years now has been the Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine. And it's got everything you could ever think of. You can rent it from a library, you know, that's a great source, but if you purchase it, you're able to make notes, you're able to write, you're able to turn down corners, and you can just make it a very well-loved book that you learn so much from over the years.
I actually just read on the bottom, it's 550 herbs and remedies for common ailments.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
One thing for yourself to never do is let somebody tell you that just because you're not a registered herbalist or a naturopath, that you can't learn this stuff and be able to treat your family at home. That is 100% false. There is such a stigma around this type of thing, around herbs, and people get so up in arms about it. They get so upset because if someone goes and they become a registered herbalist, they put that time in, and I get it. That's a lot of hours of schooling. It's a lot of clinicals and whatnot, and So then they have that. So then they look down on others and say, well, you're not a registered herbalist, so you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know that these herbs don't work for that. And this.
We're not talking about all herbalists.
No.
We're just talking about, you know, there's going to be some that you come across that are that way.
If it's something that you're truly interested in and you really want to go down that road and do the schooling because you feel like you could learn better that way rather than just reading a book, go for it. It's a wonderful opportunity. I myself have just taught myself over the past 7 years, mixed with a little bit from childhood, and that's been the way that I've learned. Also by experience. You know, you can't just say, well, this is going to work for this. You have to try. You have to put yourself out there and go through it and take it for a little bit. Herbs don't work like ibuprofen.
Yeah.
You can't just take it and all your ailments are cured. It takes time and it takes effort, and it has to build up in your system. So I just don't want anybody to ever be discouraged by somebody who might say, well, you're not an herbalist, so you don't know everything, and don't treat your family. You can learn so much on your own. Please go for it if it's something you're interested in, because you truly can do it. If I can do it, and I learned with 2 very small children in the home, and I was raising them and homeschooling them, and I'm still doing it, then you can too.
All right, and she talked about us building an apothecary. So part of what we're doing with our store is going to be a section of the apothecary area. That's going to be a place that we're moving some of the stuff out of our kitchen and pantry and down into a permanent spot to where we can make all these things.
Yes.
And have storage areas to hold it. So the store is still the store. I know a lot of people have asked. There hasn't been a whole lot of movement on it. Like we have talked about, it's her and I. So if y'all saw us on the garden beds, we were doing the garden beds. We weren't doing the store.
Yeah, we do Airbnb in between that.
Yeah, exactly. So to have a store, we have to grow it to be able to sell it. So the garden took top priority, and then we're going to be kicking back over to the store hopefully next now, and really be able to kick into high gear. But that is where a lot of this stuff's going to be, is in the store. So if you do ever come visit once it's up and running, you get to see a lot of this stuff firsthand.
And then we can specifically talk with each other about what these do. It's just not something I want to put on a YouTube video. But we can talk about it together. I can give you advice. You can give me advice, and that would be really cool. One more thing, storage. How are we storing these? Mason jars. We're going to put a lot of them in mason jars until we have the shelves and space, until we turn them into tinctures, and then we'll figure it out from there. But for now, mason jars.
Yeah. You gonna be like mommy and grow all these different herbs and make medicine?
Yeah.
It's
She
pretty
loves
cool.
the garden.
Yes, she does. So we hope you've enjoyed this. It's I think one of the biggest things people comment on, like, can Jen talk more about herbs? And so this was a good one. This, like I said, this was the haul. So as things get a little bit more specific, they will probably be brought up. She'll also definitely be going over what we call Jen's tea garden. That's been moving on from place to place with us. But she'll get into specifics on what she's growing and where she's growing them and a little bit of the why stuff. So stay tuned for all that in the coming garden tours as we kick into high gear.
Yeah, and if you do have specific herbs in mind that you would like to purchase, I do recommend Bulk Apothecary. They, from what I found, they are the cheapest for the best quality organic, and they source it from other people who are wonderful as well. So that's where I would look. We don't have an affiliate link. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, we're not affiliated with any of that. This is nothing sponsored. We purchased all of this. And it's just that hopefully shows you our dedication and love for the herbs too, because none of it was said, not even discounted. But anyways, stay tuned for all that good information. I will list the books down below. It'll be one link because we have an entire store with all the books she loves. Click it, look through. The encyclopedia one will be in there. If you didn't catch what we were saying. But other than that, I hope you all enjoyed. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to down below.
Let us know.
Until the next one.
Bye.
Bye.